There will be 4 printed volumes and 1 electronic collation in the complete critical text. In addition to the 2 now published volumes, there will be 3, the history of the text of the Book of Mormon, 4, analysis of textual variants of the Book of Mormon, 5, a complete electronic collation of the Book of Mormon. The 3rd volume will discuss the transmission of the text from the manuscripts through the major editions. The 4th volume will discuss cases of textual variants and will attempt to determine the original English language reading of the text. The electronic collation will be a lined-up comparison of the important textual sources and will specify every textual variant in the Book of Mormon, including punctuation, capitalization, and spelling. The collation will include the readings of the 2 manuscripts and 20 editions of the Book of Mormon. The editor's plan is to have volumes 3 and 4 and the electronic collation available in the next 3 years. Now let us consider some of the more important findings of the project. 1. In copying from the original manuscript to the printer's manuscript, Oliver Cowdery and other scribes made an average of 2 to 3 textual changes per manuscript page. The term textual change means an alteration in the wording, however minor, or a consistent change in the spelling of a name. In general, these transmission errors have not been caught by later editors of the text except by reference to the manuscripts themselves. 2. As a part of this project, the editor has completed a preliminary analysis of variation in the text of the Book of Mormon. This analysis provides evidence for about 1,500 potential changes to the current text. The large majority of these textual changes involve minor variation in phraseology. For instance, in the next overhead, in more than a few cases, the indefinite article or a has accidentally been omitted, especially when the article is repeated in a coordinate construction. In the following list, we have 8 examples involving a pair of coordinated adjectives followed by a noun. For each case, the edition in which the repeated a was first dropped is listed in parentheses. So, for example, in the first one, Omni 1 and 28, the original text reads, a strong and a mighty man. The is repeated. This is not normal for English. It's much more natural just to delete the second and this happens. It's rather persistently occurring, but randomly and occasionally. So in 1852, this was set by the typesetter as a strong and mighty man. In the next one, we have one where dropped out in the 1840 edition. The next one, 1837. And so currently in the text, there are 8 of these. In the LDS text, there are a few more different ones in the RLDS where this repeated has accidentally dropped out. And this represents 8 of the 1,500. Most of the changes are like this. In contrast to cases of minor variation, about 100 newly discovered changes are semantically significant. These proposed changes lead to differences in meaning, ones that would show up when translating the text. 3. Scribal corrections in the original manuscript support statements made by witnesses of the translation that Joseph Smith sometimes spelled out the unfamiliar Book of Mormon names, at least on their first occurrence. 4. The original text is more consistent in phraseology and word usage. Many errors have led to various wrinkles in the text. One example is the phrase, the word of the justice of the eternal God. And if we could have the next one. This is found in 1 Nephi 12 and 18, which in the original manuscript read, the sword of the justice of the eternal God. And here we have the 2 manuscripts in the writing as the scribes wrote them, and the original has, and a great and a terrible gulf divided them, yea, even the sword of the justice of the eternal God. When Oliver copied this, he accidentally misread the S. It was difficult to actually read, and he ended up replacing it by word. Elsewhere, the Book of Mormon refers only to the sword of God's justice, never to the word of God's justice. And here we have 8 examples, no 7. And the last one is particularly interesting in Ether 8 and 23. It has the exact same phraseology as the original, the one in 1 Nephi 12 and 18, the sword of the justice of the eternal God. 5. The original text, that is the English language text that Joseph Smith saw, is not fully recoverable by human effort. Textual errors are generally not found except by discovering the correct reading in the manuscripts. Unfortunately, most of the original manuscript is not extant. Conjecture based on internal analysis of the Book of Mormon text has largely been unsuccessful in recovering the correct reading. Still, some conjectures are probably correct, as in the next. Maybe I don't have that example. Let's see. Well, I'll have to give you an example later. Okay. 6. Even if we had the entire original manuscript, there could still be errors in the text, mainly because the original manuscript itself has some errors. For instance, in the next one, in 1 Nephi 7 and 5, the original manuscript reads, Ishmael and also his whole hold. An impossible reading. The correct reading must be something else. When copying into the printer's manuscript, Oliver Cowdery amended this phrase to Ishmael and also his household. And here you have the 2 manuscripts as they were written. The original manuscript is not Oliver Cowdery, an unknown scribe. The printer's manuscript is Oliver Cowdery copying it. Usage elsewhere in the text suggests the word household always occurs with a universal quantifier, either all or whole or none at all in negative sentences. And here I give some examples. Note the last one, Ether 13 and 22, is a universal quantifier, which means that the whole family goes along. Coriantumr repented not, neither his household. If you had written there neither all of his household, then it might imply that some of them maybe did. But by negative sentences, you can't have a quantifier to get the universal meaning. The really interesting one here is the use of his whole household in Alma 22 and 23, the 4th one down. This suggests that the original text for 1 Nephi 7 and 5 probably read Ishmael and also his whole household, where the first whole in the original manuscript is a homophone for W-H-O-L-E, whole. And the second whole stands for the hold of household with the loss of the final D in pronunciation. 7. The systematic nature of the original text and the spelling out of Book of Mormon names support the theory that the text was revealed to Joseph Smith word for word and even letter for letter. On the other hand, all subsequent transmissions of the text appear to be subject to human error. At each stage, the accuracy of the transmission is dependent upon the carefulness of the transmitter, whether Joseph Smith, his scribes, or later editors and typesetters. This caveat, of course, equally applies to the critical text itself. Although all have tried to do their best, every transmission of the text appears to have led to some mistakes. Yet none of these errors significantly interfere with either the message of the book or its doctrine. These textual errors have never prevented readers of the book from receiving their own personal witness of its truth. Let me give one other